Smaulgld.
Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Sunday evening, the 27th of October 2019, and that means it is Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. The reason I was confused there was because we missed Saturday night silver with Smaulgld last night. So tonight we're going to cover gold first, since it is indeed Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. And tonight's topic, we'll get to the silver later in the program. And tonight's topic is the dangers of gold and silver mining. We're going to discuss two recent incidences, one recent incident, and just in general, a quick discussion on the general dangers of gold mining. It is actually, in many instances, not just dangerous, but life-threatening. Also, we're going to go through the Dow Gold ratio. There's a new ETF proposed by the people who put together the GLD ETF for Bitcoin. That's a bit odd. And then there's been some talk about Germany buying gold again, but that talk has been shut down already. And then we're going to take a look at the gold ETFs and the gold stockpiles and see what's being added there. And we're going to take a look at the gold price in a couple of foreign countries, currencies, and then we're going to finally get to silver and take a look at the silver stockpiles and the silver prices. So let's just quickly talk about the dangers of gold and silver mining. There was a recent story the other day. In Russia, which is the third largest gold producer, 15 people died in a dam accident in a mining community. Now, apparently this dam was built illegally, and of course, we're not sure whether the gold mining itself was legal, but we have heard around the world there are many illegal gold mining setups that run afoul of environmental or even just licensing rules, mostly because they're not properly taking care of the environment. And what happened in Russia was a Siberian gold mine dam burst and killed 15 people. And what happened, a quick picture of it there from the BBC News, there were mining huts where the workers were staying, and the homes got swept away. And that's just from living near the mine, where they had probably set up this dam that probably they say was not properly built or was built illegally. But in general, even if you have a properly functioning dam, the work itself is very, very dangerous. You have to go below ground, often for hours at a time. You have to be put down in a shaft. Thousands of workers, for example, in South Africa, will work in these mines. And we talked about how gold mining companies is a very, very hard business. It's a very, very hard business to run because you're somewhat subject to what happens with the price of your precious metals. When are you going to mine? So you have to project, you have to hire workers to work the mine. If the price of gold or silver falls, but you have debt obligations, you kind of still have to keep mining, but then how much do you mine? Which veins do you mine? All your production schedules can get thrown off. Then you've got to worry about all the different jurisdictions that your particular mining company is mining in. You've got environmental issues. But now you actually also have to think about, you're almost like the president of a country who's sending its citizens into battle. You're going to have to confront and comfort families who have died in the line of service. So while these workers may get paid a decent wage, they certainly don't get paid mega wages. And there's been a story recently in Bloomberg talking about a mile below ground is the dangerous world of precious metals. So when people talk about Bitcoin mining, it's just like gold mining. No, it's not. You're actually going into the earth to mine precious metals. It's laborious, it's dangerous, and people do indeed die every year in the mining of precious metals. Just something to be aware of, that precious metals do not come easily. They do seriously literally come from blood, sweat, and tears. All right, let's move on now, and let's see what's been happening in the gold market. Sorry for that sobering Sunday night view, but that is indeed something that's worth keeping in mind. when you wear your gold ring or your gold necklace, or collecting gold and silver. Very dangerous business indeed. Now let's talk about the gold price and where we're headed. Had a very good week last week where we managed to get back above 1500 and stay above 1500, and currently in the after hours markets we are at $1,505, and that has kept the gold silver ratio this year over 80-1. You can see here, which is also impressive for gold, that the price of gold has risen as it has this year, and the gold silver ratio has not really moved. The gold silver ratio, you can see, was heading higher all year, starting around January 1st when it was about 82, went all the way up to 93, and that was on the strength mostly of rising gold. Now the reason the gold silver ratio has come down since I'd say July or so, as you can see in the chart, is not because gold stopped rising, it's because silver started to move up a bit faster. And that's where you see the one when we went all the way down to almost 79-1. Let's take a look at gold in some other foreign currencies. Let's start with the gold versus the Indian rupee, because India is a very significant player in the physical gold market, in that it has to import nearly all of its gold demand because it has no domestic gold mining production, and a lot of the Indian gold demand cannot be met. Most of the Indian gold demand cannot be met from existing stocks within the country, even though there's estimated to be 18,000 to 22,000 tons in the country. A lot of that gold is in the form of heirlooms, and it stays in families, and it may pass or it would be given to another family, but a lot of new gold has to come into the country each and every year. And when the price rises, that's when the Indians start to slam the brakes on. There's also great demand in India for gold for festival season like Diwali. But recently, the gold demand in India has gone down, and that's a good function of not just the rising gold price. You say, well, it's gone up from 1,200 to 1,500 in the United States in the dollar. Well, it's actually gone from 80,000 to 115,000 in Indian rupees, so it's gone up a much more significant percentage than in dollars, and that has curtailed some Indian gold buying. And we'll talk later about what the impact has been on silver in India, silver Indian demand. Gold prices and jewelry, and that's the main purpose of Indian gold buying, is they're not really buying bars as much as they're buying bangles and necklaces and rings. And gold prices in the United States have soared 20%, and it's saying that's flipped the fine jewelry industry on its head. It's putting a squeeze on jewelers' prices and gross margins. Same thing. Rising prices are not necessarily good for gold dealers or jewelers because it cuts into the demand. Now, bullion dealers may see some FOMO purchasing because the price is rising, but the jewelers, they definitely see a fall off, and they may have to cut their margins in order to get that sale. When the price of gold is $1,000 and they craft it into $1,000 an ounce and they craft it into a piece of jewelry, they can get a bigger margin because the people can afford the jewelry. Once you get 50% higher to $1,500, well, it's going to be harder to get the entire 50% increase in the price of gold on your jewelry. You're going to have to lower the price to keep the people coming back. So India, of course, is having the same issue, but instead of 20% increase in gold, I think the Indian rupee, it's up 35%. In Indian rupees, gold is up 35%. Now, if you're in Argentina, you could probably forget about buying gold jewelry right now. If you haven't been buying it, because just a couple of years ago, or just a year ago, in January, we were looking at 50,000 Argentine pesos per ounce, and now it's pretty much almost doubled. It's at 90,000 pesos per ounce. So unless you've kept your money somewhere else, but if you've been saving up for a gold ring since the beginning of the year in Argentina, it's going to cost you almost double for that ring. Now, Brazil, it's a little better. The Brazilian, it's not really a little better. It's just a little better recently. While Argentina is now at an all-time high again against gold. Gold is at an all-time high against the Argentine peso. Recently, against the Brazilian real, gold hit an all-time high, but it's come down just a little bit, as you can see there. But still, you can see it rose sharply in August. And what else do we got? That's it on that. I don't have all the different charts and the different. If you have a specific one, you can email me. You can email me, and I can send you the chart if you have a particular country that you're interested in. Let's talk about this German gold story. Now, there was a story out that the Bundesbank has been buying gold for the first time in 70 some odd years. I had done a story maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was called "Who Knew Germany is Selling Gold?" and it was published in Zero Hedge. And I discovered that the Bundesbank, the one that made such a big deal out of getting its gold back, repatriating its gold from France and repatriating its gold from the Bank of England, the Bank of France, and the New York Federal Reserve, finally got it back. I found out for the last, 12, 15 years, they've actually been selling 3, 4, 5, 6 tons of gold a year and not replacing it. Now, they're selling it to, and have been selling it to, the German government so that it can mint coins, gold coins, but still, I understand the inter-party transaction, but if that's such an interest in gold, you wouldn't see them selling off their gold. So I thought it was interesting that the news report said that they had started to add gold. I thought, well, that's a good thing, as Bernie would say, because they've lost a lot of gold. I think they've lost 100 or so, 200 or so. It says we're disconnected. Anyway, looks like we're back on. When I heard the news that Germany had added gold, I thought that made sense that they might have done that since they've been selling gold for the last 15, 20 years. Maybe they're starting to replace it. But it turns out that the way they had looked at it, someone had seen it on the IMF website, and it had shown a slight increase in gold reserves. And then someone went back, and I didn't do this myself, but I do see that you can't really read here, but someone republished the IMF gold holdings of nations and focused in on Germany and showed that they had removed that entree that showed an additional amount of gold. So Germany appears not to be adding gold. They're not really selling gold, but it does draw our attention to the fact that the Western central banks, particularly the ones in the ECB, they are not adding gold, have not been adding gold. And that brings me, for decades, England has sold gold, and even if they're not in the EU anymore, or not supposed to be, or not going to be. That brings me to Switzerland. Now, Switzerland's a very interesting country. Switzerland used to have, as you can see on the chart here, 2,600 tons of gold. Many of you will remember a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when the Swiss had a referendum called Save Our Swiss Gold. And the idea was that people were annoyed that the government had sold from 2,600 tons down to just about 1,040 tons of their gold, and they wanted the nation to buy it back. They wanted to prevent the nation from ever selling gold again. The referendum was winning for a while in the public opinion polls, but the banks got into action with a lot of propaganda, and the referendum eventually failed by a pretty big margin. I guess they scared the people that somehow gold was going to screw up their ability to, I don't know what. But the referendum did fail. But it does highlight that Switzerland has a long tradition of having gold backing to its currency. And when they joined the IMF in early 2000, the IMF said, no, you can't do that anymore. You can't have that much gold. And ever since then, the Swiss bank has become much more like other central banks, less worried about its gold holdings and more worried about how many shares of Tesla or Zillow or Apple it may have purchased on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchanges. But there you see the Swiss gold reserves, and again, they're not adding any. None of the Western central banks are adding any, although we did see, we've covered this from time to time, some of the Eastern European banks, such as the Central Bank of Poland, the Central Bank of Hungary, have added gold in the last year or so. Also, let's talk about Switzerland. It's a very important country for gold. Let's look at the Swiss gold price. Not quite back to the record. Most countries, currencies like the Canadian dollar and the Argentine peso and the Brazilian real and what's some of the other ones? Australian dollars. All-time highs have been reached already, passing the 2011 all-time gold highs. But Switzerland's like the dollar. It's still very strong. It's probably the other strong currency in the world. We have not yet hit that all-time high again. Still at 1,500 and change, small amounts. Now, that's about where the U.S. dollar is at 1504. They're almost identical. But the all-time high in gold and Swiss francs was only, I think it was like 1,690. Whereas in the United States, the dollar had gone down versus gold. Gold went up to $1,911. But the other thing I wanted to mention about Switzerland is Switzerland sees, not just forget the gold that they have, the 1,000 tons or 10,040 tons that they have listed at the Central Bank of Switzerland. Look at these import-export numbers. Gold is a big business in Switzerland, and you can see at the top how much gold they import every month. That's tons, 125 tons, 147 tons, 182 tons, ever since 2017, and then they export a lot. Now, if you don't know why they import and export a lot of gold, there's no gold mining going on in Switzerland. Switzerland has, I think, the world's largest capacity to refine and cast gold. So they're up there in the mountains, importing the gold and then exporting it back out. Now, it doesn't necessarily go in one direction. So they may import from Argentina and then ship it out to London. They may import from, let's say, Ghana, which is now a gold powerhouse, and then ship it out to India. So it is not a net. They may get it from the U.S. and ship it elsewhere. So some countries send their gold to be cast and sent back. Some send it there, and there's all types of international financial arrangements. But you can see the net imports, exports, they ebb and they flow. And again, it means nothing. It doesn't mean Switzerland knows what's happened. This is not gold that they're holding for their own benefit. This is the gold trade for them. So I show this not to indicate any trend, but just to show you the size and the amount of gold that goes in and out of Switzerland in a month. It goes up and it goes down, but generally they're importing and exporting over 100, 150 tons each and every month. And again, I'm going to show you something, but it's not indicative of anything. It's just a particular month where the gold, this is where it's coming in from. These are the imports. Venezuela, United Arab Emirates happen to be a big month. Not always the big month, but you could see on the Italy, Hong Kong, Ghana, as I mentioned. That makes sense. They would be getting gold from Ghana, Germany, France. It doesn't have to be gold that's already. It doesn't have to be freshly mined gold. It can be in any form because Switzerland is a refiner. They can send them coins and they can melt them down. Brazil, there's all types of countries here doing trade with Switzerland in the gold. I'm not going to show you the exports, but you get the idea. There's a large number of countries here that are dealing with Switzerland in gold. All right, let's take a look now at the gold stockpiles. That's the last thing before we get into silver. I mentioned that, let me talk quickly about that gold ETF. I know this is Solid Gold Sunday, but this one, I'm not going to talk about Bitcoin, but just briefly, there have been many tries by large companies like Van Eck trying to get a Bitcoin ETF off the ground, and they haven't been able to do so. And their SEC has given them the runaround. First, it was on storage. And it seems that they've solved the storage issue. I mean, I don't know how hard it can be. I'm not saying it's technologically easy, but there are now places that do store and are licensed to store Bitcoin. So I don't think the SEC should have that concern if there are places like Fidelity and Coinbase that have custodial arrangements, insurance, that they shouldn't be worried about losing the Bitcoin any more than to be worried about losing any asset that's in the ETF. But the main reason that the SEC says they haven't approved these ETFs, they're concerned that they can't, there's a manipulation going on in the markets, which is pretty rich coming from them, knowing that we've seen that there's cases all the time that the gold and silver markets are manipulated, and yet they have no problem with a gold and silver ETF. You have GLD and SLV. Now, a lot of people know about GLD, but a lot of people don't know is that GLD is somewhat sponsored by the World Gold Council. And the World Gold Council was instrumental in getting that Eat Gold ETF in place, and they had to do a lot of work at the SEC explaining to them, because there never used to be a gold ETF. ETFs have been around for 20 years or so before, and there hadn't been a precious metals one, and they had to walk the SEC through it and explain to them why they should be allowed to issue an ETF. And say what you will about GLD, a lot of people criticize it in the gold space, but it has been a raging success given the amount of money that flows through it. It has, for better for worse, you can say gold investment is up the last 20 years because of GLD. Now, that doesn't mean people are buying more gold. They think they're buying gold. They're buying gold ETF. They're getting exposure to the price. But the reason I mention this is the company that is now trying to get a Bitcoin ETF. It seems an unlikely company, but it's not. It is a company called Cryptoin. Interesting name. But the guy who's running it is the former head of the World Gold Council, which is the original sponsor of the gold ETF GLD. So we'll see how that one goes. They might be the one to crack the ETF game. Most people aren't talking about this because they're thinking, there's a lot of gold people in the periphery of the crypto space doing the gold back crypto thing. And this is probably just tossed in the pile of things that aren't going to work. Some gold guy trying to put a Bitcoin ETF together. But here's the kicker on this one. And this is all the paperization, digitalization, financialization assets going right here. This is not the same as an ETF where they're going to store the ETF. Listen to this. It says it's going to be based on the CME group, which is where the COMEX is, Bitcoin futures market. So the ETF itself really isn't when you buy a futures on the CME, the Bitcoin futures, it's not like the back futures. You cannot take delivery in Bitcoin. You're just trading a derivative off of, okay, so the price of Bitcoin is this. Do you think it'll go up? Do you think it'll go down? This ETF will allow you to buy the price of those futures. It's not really the same thing as an ETF where any Bitcoin is going to be stored. So this one has a good chance of passing. But just like the gold ETF, people who invest in this will have no shot at getting any Bitcoin, just like you have no shot at getting any gold, actual gold, if you wanted it from your gold ETF. So I give this one a very good chance of passing muster with the SEC, because the SEC is not going to have any problem with, because we know they don't have a problem with the CME group's futures pricing. We see manipulation on there all the time. The SEC seems to be partial to the CME group and COMEX. So if a group like the World Gold Council, which already had a gold ETF approved by the SEC, why wouldn't the SEC approve a Bitcoin futures if that Bitcoin futures isn't based on the, quote, fraudulent and manipulative trading that takes place on all these other exchanges? Well, they're going to use the Bitcoin futures market price from the CME group. What better price can you use than that? There's no manipulation going on there, right? So I think this one has a good chance of passing. I don't know if I'll have anything to do with the market, but someone's going to make a lot of money because the sponsors of these things make money. Now, talking about gold ETFs, well, here we go. That big yellow blotch that you see in the middle of your screen there, that represents the gold in the gold ETF GLD. And it was one of the very first, and you can see it had basically no competition until about 2009. But again, lots of money pouring into what you would call paper gold ETFs. While this year, Gold Eagle sales are way, way down. You're talking about just a few 100,000 ounces of gold being sold so far this year. All right, since we missed last night, solid gold, silver. I just want to briefly catch you up on the COMEX silver. COMEX silver is they're still adding it. Remember all that talk about COMEX default? There's no silver at the COMEX. And then they try to change it to, well, there's not enough registered silver and someone's going to stand for delivery. Maybe China. I don't know what that means. Through a proxy, through JP Morgan. I can't believe it. Not you people. I say you people. But so many people believed and still believe a lot of that nonsense. Someone's going to stand for delivery and then it's going to be game over. COMEX is going to collapse and China's going to do it, and they're going to collapse the COMEX, and then they're going to roll their gold out into a stadium. And then JP Morgan's buying Silver Eagles. So much of that nonsense talk people used to believe. Maybe they still believe it. I don't know. People listening to this channel know that there's nothing to those stories. But anyway, and you're looking at a chart that shows how much. This is not just silver. This is silver in the 1,000 ounce COMEX eligible tradable eligible for delivery type of silver. This doesn't include all the silver that's in the Brink stocks or could be in the coins and things or the JP Morgan vaults that are not in the form of 1,000 ounce bars. There's millions of ounces that are stored in those facilities in the forms of Silver Eagles, Canadian bars, Canadian silver maple leafs, generic bars. These are just the specific COMEX approved bars. That's a lot of silver, 314 million ounces. The idea that it's going to collapse and someone's going to stand for delivery and there won't be any silver there. Well, that's a load of rubbish. Yes, indeed, it is. And let's just take a look at the JP Morgan vault as an example. Now, remember, this isn't JP Morgan silver. This is what they're holding. There's no indication that this belongs to them. 161 million ounces, massive amounts. But it's not just JP Morgan that holds a lot of silver, or their warehouse that holds a lot of silver. Take a look at this. Look at it. Brink's 650 million ounces of eligible COMEX tradable 1,000 ounce bars silver. C&T coins and things, also 50 million. HSBC's got a healthy 30 million ounces. Scotia Makata, which is trying to get out of this whole business, still has 18 million ounces. And the Delaware Depository Trust has about 15 million ounces available for trading. So, silver is being stacked in the COMEX. It's also being stacked in the ETFs. Look at this. Straight up again. Lots of investment in, this is called physical silver. You have a claim on silver in a warehouse at COMEX. If indeed you have a contract, and technically if you wish to stand for delivery, there's plenty of it there for you to stand for. Remember, most of the trading on COMEX in upwards over 90% in silver, and in gold it's even higher. Actually take delivery. Most contracts, most traders are there to either hedge their physical positions because they're coin dealers or bullion dealers, or to trade to make fiat profit, or sometimes they may take delivery, but for the most part they let the contracts just expire by their terms, or they roll them over, and if they expire by their terms, they may get their cash. For the most part, there's not a lot of silver that is delivered to people. And even when they do take delivery, many of them just take delivery by saying, well, just slide that over into my coins and things vault, slide it into my JP Morgan position at the JP Morgan vault, put that in my Brinks vault. It's not like they then take it home and do unboxings of it and do YouTube videos and so on. So I don't think people understand how the COMEX works. Even when they take delivery of the silver, sometimes it just means put it in my name over in that vault over there. Especially with silver, the amount of, if you're trading these contracts, it's a lot of silver. You don't want the pallets showing up at your house. Where are you going to store? You're only going to send it right back to the vault with that amount of silver. But then they're not ready for the collapse. If you had a pallet of silver at your house, you're not ready for anything. Except how am I going to get this back to the vault? Because I don't. Anyway, final story. Silver glitters in India as record prices dull gold's luster. So there you go. You got to give a gift. I mean, really, silver's no substitute in India, but it's it's not scoffed at in rising middle class numbers. I think India, they say, has a middle class of 350 million people, which is about the size of the United States. Those are all people who can buy jewelry. Maybe they can't afford gold jewelry just for hanging around and casual use, they call costume jewelry. But at current silver prices, we talked about this one night, silverware is not that expensive. Many Indian households do buy silver. They're the largest buyer of silverware in the world. And you can buy $15, $20, $30 pieces of jewelry. You can buy a silver necklace for under $50. And many aspiring and economically upwardly mobile Indians do indeed buy silver. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section. Let me get into the comment section and see what we got tonight. Sorry we missed Saturday night silver with Smaulgld. Next week we'll try to give a more fulsome update on what is going on in the silver market. But let me just get to... All right, here we go. We're going to pull up the Smaulgld fundraising. I want to thank everyone who has been donating via sending me items of value or checks or cash. I've received silver, gemstones, amber. Thank you very much. Postal orders to Smaulgld LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire 03820. And those of you who've become patrons or Subscribe Star members, and those who donate via PayPal. I do have a few who donate regularly on PayPal. And those who send Bitcoin and Litecoin to the addresses above and to those QR codes. And, of course, to the Smaulgld Mug stackers who purchase Smaulgld branded merchandise from the Smaulgld store. All ways of donating to Smaulgld are available on smaulgld.com or the links below this BitChute or YouTube video, so check them out. And also, if you do some shopping on the Smaulgld site or with the links below, Smaulgld has affiliate links for coffee, for precious metals, on Money Metals Exchange, SD Bullion, Golden Eagle Coin. And when you click on those links, if you're going to shop, it's not investment advice to buy coffee or storable food or wine or precious metals. But if you are going to buy those things, you pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites directly. So I do appreciate the people who remember. Say, I was going to make an order at SD Bullion. If you use those links, I do get a small commission. That's another way of helping the site out without sending remuneration directly. So thank you very much for that. And let's see what we've got in the comment section. Looks like we got a lot of comments tonight. Sorry, I missed you guys last night, so you got some questions. All right, Jack, gold and silver, my hobby is not bad. No. Some people like baseball cards. Some people like gold and silver. Some people like sports cars. I remember saying to myself, I'll never want that hobby because I'll never be rich enough to have to collect sports cars. I saw a show once. Reggie Jackson was showing I had like 40 sports cars. I thought, oh, that's an expensive hobby. All right. I heard that accident in Russia, they put the cabins near the dam. Yes, that's what happened. And the dam wasn't properly built by the 1%. Everybody went under. Not good. Precious Metals Update says, hey, Smaulgld and everyone. I like when Salivate Metal calls them on. Hey, Smaulgld and everyone. Remember the Chilean miners stuck in the mine shaft for almost a month? That's right. I don't think they were gold and silver miners, Pablo, but it's not the same point. It is the same point. Mining is a very... Not only is it dangerous, it's a necessary business. So the people who do that, I mean, that's a thank you for your service type job, I would imagine. I mean, most people go to work, they're not risking their lives. I mean, you could do something stupid and get hurt or even killed at your job, but it's not really the norm for it to happen. But jobs like police, fire, miners, you've got a good chance. You don't have a good chance of surviving in certain circumstances. So again, that is a thank you for your service type job, I think. All right, what else do we have here? Jack, Smaulgld, is gold a good buy at these levels, or should I just buy silver due to the ratio and upside potential of silver? I know silver is mostly speculative. It's so cheap. Well, there's your answer right there. I don't give investment advice, but you know my view on the gold-silver ratio. I don't believe the ratio is indicative of why silver should be bought. My view is, and you can do whatever you want with it, is that silver doesn't go. Since 1974, when both metals were totally or mostly removed from the monetary system. Silver's totally removed from the monetary system. There's no silver coins. There's no silver certificates. There's no silver backing. Central banks don't have it. So forget silver as money or as, it only has a history. Gold still has that monetary history and some monetary value as a reserve, tier 1 asset under Basel III, and also central banks hold it. Okay, so when gold goes up because of monetary concerns, inflation, whatever it is, safe haven, silver will follow. If gold does not go up, silver's trading 100% as a commodity. No different than copper or nickel. It's going to be based on supply and demand and manipulation. Silver still has an investment component where people will buy it, like they'll stack it, they'll buy SLV. Since 1974, that monetary component that's totally gone gets reignited when gold goes higher. You saw it in 1980, 79, 80, and you saw it in 2010, 11. But you saw how fast silver dropped and how low it went. Gold still maintained its value during that period. Didn't really drop much. Silver fell through the floor. Same thing now. As I said, the beginning of last year, end of last year, beginning of this year, my prediction for gold was 1,600 and silver 20 to 22. And I said silver will only move if gold gets past the 1375, goes to 1400, goes to 1500, goes to 1600. Then silver's monetary component, dormant monetary component, will get ignited and go higher. It's kind of happened that way so far. I can't be held to particular numbers. I don't make predictions. That was my general sense of where things were going. Still my general sense of where things are headed. But silver to me has no independent monetary value, or everyone's going to wake up and rush into silver. No, they're going to go into gold, and then a small amount's going to go into silver, but because silver is a small market, silver has a chance. But if you're looking for a store of value, silver is not it. No way, no. Historically, the last 50 years, the last 100 years, silver is not the store of value that gold is. But you mentioned speculation. When gold and silver rose in 1979-80, 2009 to 2011, silver outperformed. Silver massively also underperformed in the interim. What do you think will happen to Fed this week? Cut or no? By how much? And will Powell's statements be interpreted hawkish or dovish by the markets? He's probably going to another rate cut, and then he's going to kind of be neutral to hawkish after he cuts. That's my guess. Just a guess. Jack, Smaulgld, in Canada, gold is at all-time highs. Is this a direct reflection of the health of the economy? No, it's a direct reflection on the state of the Canadian currency, which is not doing as well as the United States dollar. The dollar's on a tear internationally. The dollar right now is the only currency. This is my whole point about this nonsense. China to crush the dollar. The only competition that gold has is the dollar. Every other currency's got not a shot against the dollar. And the only reason the dollar has a shot is because everybody uses it and everybody needs it. And everybody's borrowed tons of dollars. When people borrow zillions of dollars, then zillions of dollars are required to pay them back. And what do? In order to pay them back, they borrow more money to pay off the dollars. That's why the dollar's in demand. This nonsense about crush the dollar and the United States runs up too much debt. All countries run up too much debt. Most countries run up even more debt than the United States, and the worst part for them is they do it in dollars. And then their currencies depreciate, and they have to borrow more. They have to buy more. It costs them more in their own currency to buy more dollars to pay off their debt. So, Canada, Australia, all these countries, pretty good countries with decent currencies, are getting crushing. Gold is crushing the Canadian dollar. Gold is crushing the Argentine peso. Gold is crushing the Turkish lira. Gold is crushing the Russian ruble. Gold is crushing the Chinese yuan. Gold is crushing the Canadian dollar. The only currency that gold is not crushing is the dollar. All right. Updates. I've heard you compare rate cuts to steering a massive ship. You would hold rates at this level before raising rates again. I bet he's hawkish because of weak global data. Well, I'm not in charge of the Fed, and I have nothing to do with whether they raise or lower interest rates. But I think what the Fed wanted to do was raise rates as much as they could, so when they have a recession, they can lower them. But they've kind of walked that back, not just because Trump has been bothering them. I think they realize that their better game. Look what happened. They lowered interest rates, right? This year, a couple of times. Just because they lower rates doesn't mean the market does anything. So what do they have to do? They have to jump into the market. They have to buy. Right now they're buying $60 billion worth of short-term treasuries. Then they had to make that whole repo facility available. So lowering rates is in and of itself is not enough. And what their Fed has been talking about is instead of lowering rates or taking them to zero or below next time, we just printed the money and buy the assets. So that what they want to do is just buy stuff. And what they said at the last couple of meetings, we've gone through these minutes before, and I haven't heard anyone else go through them, but we did on this channel. We went through the minutes almost line by line. We picked out the parts where the Fed was saying that many of the participants were talking about the lessons learned through the various QEs that they had done, how many assets they bought, and the impact that buying those assets had. And what they determined was, it was no big deal. We didn't cause any trouble at all. We could have bought more. We should have bought more. Hey, we were drunk. We could have gotten drunker. And now they're saying, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't just be buying agency mortgage-backed securities, U.S. Treasuries. Maybe we can buy some other stuff. There's no limit to what we can buy. Look at the Swiss National Bank. They don't just buy blue chip stocks. They buy unicorn stocks in the United States. They don't just buy their own stocks. The ECB buys corporate bonds, private corporate bonds. The United States Fed is not allowed to do that. Well, I think they said they're putting together, it's not a prediction, they said they were putting together a plan that'll be released early next year that says what they want to be able to do. They're going to go to Congress and they're going to say, hey, how about if we have a problem, we start buying the NASDAQ, we start buying the Dow, and Congress is going to tell them to go pound sand. No, we don't want them to do that. If they have a responsible Congress. What's interesting is the Democrats and Republicans are both, quote, responsible when it comes to giving away too much power to, they've already given so much power to the Fed, but if you look what they've done to Facebook, both sides are just trashing Facebook because they don't want Facebook to have banking power. Congress needs to hold on to its own power. It's not really a left-right thing. They just know that they don't want to be beholden to Facebook. And so I don't think they're going to want the Fed to be able to just buy whatever it wants. But if we have a deep recession, if we have a stock market crash, which the Fed could orchestrate, they're going to come back to the Congress and say, hey, we got a way out of this pretty quickly. Just tell us we can buy the Dow. The Dow will go up 1,000 points tomorrow, and we'll be in that market buying. And then they're going to have an emergency vote, and they'll say, sure, do what you got to do. Print the money, buy the stocks. And that's what will probably happen. All right, there you go. Precious Metal say, just printed the money, like Mario says. It's like, printed the money. But remember, the monetary policy cannot do everything. You have to have the fiscal policy. If you want to bring the helicopters out, then the fiscal policy has to be part of the issue. All right, let's see. Jack, I hate pumper channels. Just tell me what I already know. All right. I would assume the market would price in another rate cut in December yes. Well, maybe not, Jack. It depends on what, like you say, it depends on what Jerome Powell says. Also, I don't know if at this meeting there is a press conference after. They don't do them all the time. Midmark SI is looking for Seamus. Says, Seamus, how much gold do you have there in Ireland? Well, I haven't taken inventory lately, but the leprechauns, they're holding on to a lot of gold. And I'll let you in on a little secret. One day I'm going to find me a leprechaun, and I'm going to strangle him and take his gold. Okay, Seamus, well, thanks for the public confession. All right, what else do we have here? DW, if COMEX would force the price higher, wouldn't they just make more profit on silver in the vault? Okay, see, this is where people... Once people become interested in gold or silver or Bitcoin or whatever asset they're into, whatever asset they're adoring at the moment, they happen to think that all other entities are like focused on silver or focused on gold or focused on Bitcoin. JP Morgan care less about silver. This idea that they're holding on to silver for like 10 years and buying it. Think about it. If they've been buying it all this time, they've been losing a fortune because it's been going down the last 10 years. JP Morgan, any other public company, is interested in quarterly profits. The senior management, the traders, the employees all get paid on their quarterly profits. Pouring money into a losing effort like silver the last 10 years is not what they've been doing. It's not in their balance sheet. It's not in their interest to do it. It's complete nonsense. Oh, you'll see when the price of silver rises, they're going to make a lot of money. They already make a lot of money. They make fortunes and all types of scams that they run. And I use the word scam facetiously because what they do, their trading is a scam. They win all the time. They don't have to be stacking silver in a COMEX warehouse, hoping 20 years from now it goes higher. Or the other nonsense, they're buying silver eagles. Yeah, of course they are. They're buying silver eagles from the U.S. Mint at a $2 premium per coin, and then they're melting them down. That doesn't make a stitch of sense. All right. Yeah, I'll do a podcast, Jack. I always do a highlight reel after every FOMC meeting. What I do is I do two things. I cover the press conference and the press release, but then what I do is when the minutes come out, like a month or so later, I cover those as well. All right. SD Bullion. Yeah, SD Bullion is very good prices. I'm not a big fan of Silver Doctor's editorial, but I do like the guys over there. I don't like I like what they say, but I don't like a lot of the stuff that they print. I really think that Mike and the team and James Henry Anderson at SD Bullion, they do a really good job, and they're very good analysts. But I think a lot of the Silver Doctors stores, there's a lot of hype and a lot of pump. But yeah, SD Bullion, very good bullion dealer as well. All right. Yep, I agree with precious metals. I agree with Jack. Okay, precious metals update. I think we will probably see a boost in spot. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, I agree with everything you say there. But again, who knows precious metal? What he's saying is he thinks we'll get a boost in spot. And then when the cut comes through, if we do have a cut, and then it'll go back down after Powell delivers a neutral or somewhat hawkish. Yeah, that's probably what will happen. Generally what will happen there. Precious metals printed the money. All right. DB Stupid is here. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Who's Mike? Mike is the bomb. Who is Mike? You don't mean Mike Baloney, do you? All right. Well, that looks like it for tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining me, and we'll be back. Yeah, we'll cover the Fed this week for sure. And probably Wednesday night. Yeah, so let me just check my schedule there. I think Wednesday night will be a good night to go through what the Fed has to say, get your reflections as well. Remember, this is not a two-way. It is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. All right. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you again. Printed the money. Bernie, do the countdown. What do you want me to do the countdown for? You're not paying me anything. I'm not even getting a damn living wage. Okay, good night, Bernie. Good night.